John, Michelle, thank you for being here. Thanks for your leadership. Thanks for your sacrifice and what you have already done to be able to serve the nation. We really appreciate that. It is a tremendous sacrifice to serve in the intelligence community. As my wife has said to me a couple of times, we share everything about everything and talk about life together, but there's now a portion of my life I can't talk about with her serving the Intelligence Committee. You've had even more of that serving as ODNI. And so thanks for y'all's sacrifice to be able to serve. I've got several questions I want to be able to run through quickly on this. There are a group of folks in Oklahoma City, I can't name who they are because they're alive, but their lives were threatened on Election Day by an ISIS terrorist in Oklahoma City that was discovered initially by a 702. That 702 authority is important. There are people in my neighborhood that are alive today because of that 702 authority. Now, you've been outspoken on this. It has been much maligned in many ways on it, but it has been vital for intelligence collection around the world. What is your position on 702 authority?
Thank you, Senator Lankford, for the sentiment and for the question. FISA, and particularly Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, is an indispensable national security tool. There's no other way to get around that. I say that not as a matter of opinion, but as an informed judgment, as in my role as the Director of National Intelligence, being the President's principal intelligence advisor, advising the President in the Oval Office, and understanding that a significant percentage, sometimes more than half, of the actionable foreign intelligence that we provide to the President as the policymaker to act as Commander-in-Chief comes from FISA-derived or 702-derived action. I will say I have supported FISA in that regard, but I've also, as I outlined earlier, understand that it is an important, indispensable tool, but one that can be abused, right, and that we must do everything we can to make sure that it has the appropriate safeguards, because it can't come at the sacrifice of Americans' civil liberties. So I have supported those reforms and called out those abuses when they have taken place.
I think the best way to be able to do that is by actually enforcing those that have abused it, that they're actually called out, and accountability is held for those individuals so everyone knows this is an indispensable tool. Don't abuse it. And I think that becomes very clear. You have mentioned in your testimony, we cannot ignore CIA's critical counter-narcotics and counterterrorism missions in support of border security efforts. I think few Americans understand just south of our border is one of the most violent areas of the world. Today, there are murders, beheadings, there are aerial bombardments with one cartel fighting within itself for leadership happening right now. It is an incredibly violent area just south of our border, not to mention the thousands of Americans that die with the narcotics that they pump into the United States, and they destabilize our economy and our families. That's a critical role for us in our national security. How do you perceive that?
Well, and it also ties in, Senator, to your question about the importance of FISA. So much of what the CIA has done and can do to support the U.S. government efforts to interrupt the drug trafficking rings and the places from which the precursor chemicals for those drugs come from. Our disruptions are often as a result of FISA-derived information. But you highlight an important point. You know, we talk about the threats from China and Russia and other adversaries overseas, but we, I think, all know and understand and acknowledge that that the failures in the integrity of our border has turned my home state of Texas as not only a border state, but every state into a border state. And that we have to make sure, and one of the things that, if confirmed, I want to talk about and pledge is the understanding that in addition to drug trafficking, I made a point about terrorists coming across our border, that we not lose sight of counterterrorism as something that the CIA needs to be focused on as we talk so much about the threat from China and Russia and the great power competition.